Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President and Chief Executive Officer of the Detroit Regional Chamber, Sandy Baruah.
Good morning, Detroit. How y'all doing? Okay, so that was a question, requires a response. How y'all doing? All right, I was going to say, the coffee is free, and if you haven't had enough, go back and get some more. Can you believe it? This is the 9th annual Detroit Policy Conference. 9! It's like a decade. And in fact, thank you. Paid him $10, but thank you. And the reason we have the theme of defining a decade for this year's Detroit Policy Conference is because of two reasons. Of course, we've been around for this conference roughly a decade, but more importantly, we've had an amazing decade here in Detroit, this region, and this state, and we want to know what we need to do for the next decade. And we are proud from the Chamber and the Detroit Policy Conference to continue our tradition of bringing together at this venue thought leaders, business leaders, civic leaders, neighborhood leaders, and cultural leaders to assess where we are, but more importantly, where we are going. This event every year is about our city, about our region, and your leadership role in shaping it. So thank you for taking your valuable time to join us today. And while every time you do that, it's costing me $10, and this is getting expensive for me, but thank you. So while you all are the most important people in the room, by far and away, no doubt, but we wouldn't be here today, we wouldn't have the programming that we have today if it weren't for the tremendous leadership of my friend, the former chamber chair, and second-time DPC chair, Dennis Archer Jr. Now, Dennis has been a guiding light for all of us in the chamber staff, and we're grateful for his leadership and his friendship. And you'll be hearing from Dennis shortly and as the day unfolds. I am also thankful for our sponsors, 28 great sponsors in total. Special thanks to our host and our presenting sponsor for the last 7 years, the great Motor City Casino Hotel and Soundboard. Our diamond sponsor this year is TCF Bank. Our platinum sponsors are Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan and the DTE Energy Foundation. Our gold sponsors are Comcast Business, Delta Dental, Grand Valley State University, the Kresge Foundation, and Quicken Loans. A round of applause for all of our great sponsors. So we have an awesome lineup of speakers today. Business leaders like Matt Cullen, Wright Lassiter, Arn Tellem, and Doug Song. Cultural leaders like Sam White and Hill Harper. And of course, our governmental leaders, people like Mike Duggan, County Executive Dave Coulter, and our great Lieutenant Governor, Garland Gilchrist, and others. And unlike Vegas, what happens here today at Soundboard is not supposed to stay here. We want you to share this conversation. We want you to share what you hear on stage. We want you to share about the conversations you're having amongst yourself about Detroit today and Detroit tomorrow. So please fire up your social media machines. I'm sure you brought them. Use the hashtag DPC20 and get on Facebook, Twitter, and all these other social media devices to share the conversation. So we are honored to host you here today. Many of you have been here all 9 years, and we thank you. For those of you who have made this conference your first time, welcome. We're thrilled to welcome you as well. So enjoy the day. Thanks for being here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Executive Officer of Ignition Media Group, founding partner of Archer Corporate Services, and the chair of the 2020 Detroit Policy Conference, Dennis Archer, Jr.
Good morning. First, I'm going to need more excitement than you gave Sandy. I mean, I know it's early. Come on, make some noise. All right. Thank you all for being here. Sandy, thank you for the phenomenal words and the picture. I think I've gained a couple pounds since that picture, but thank you very much. First of all, this conference would not take place in the fashion that it does without the outstanding work that the team does behind the scenes. A lot of people hear from Tammy, they hear from Sandy. There's a fleet of chamber staff that works on this, but particularly I want to thank Wendy, Megan, Devin, Beverly, and Sandra for their hard work. So give the chamber staff a round of applause, please. This is my second year as chair. I'm flattered to be asked to participate again, particularly given the theme of this year. And let me address something that you're all thinking. My mom is watching in Sarasota, and she's probably saying, did I forget my clothes today? And no, I did not, and I'll get to my ensemble shortly. The program committee was foundational to creating the day. The program committee is charged with shaping our theme, massaging the agenda, and identifying ultimately the speakers that you will hear from throughout the day. And so when you see James Chapman, Dennis Mitchell, John Hughes, Faye Nelson, Donnell White, Amanda Luan, and Rico Razzo, who undoubtedly are all here throughout the day, please thank them for their leadership in being involved on the program committee. New this year, Leadership Detroit is playing a huge role. How many LD grads in the room? That was weak. LD grads, are you here? Thank you. The best Leadership Detroit class was 18. That was mine, in case anyone was wondering. And all of those who have gone through Leadership Detroit, I think we all realize that probably the most impactful discussion out of that program was a discussion on race. And for me, I have not participated since then, and that was a long time ago, in a more candid, honest discussion on race. And so for all of you corporate members here who have young folks in your organization, I strongly suggest that you try to enroll them in our Leadership Detroit program. There are countless LD grads here that are going to be participating throughout the day. We have about 20 grads on the agenda, another 80 here in the room that are registered guests, and so thank you, Leadership Detroit, for being part of today's agenda. Our theme today is the next decade of Detroit, defining the next decade of Detroit, which to me is monumental. The last 10 years, the city has gone through a lot. I would describe it overall as being foundational to our future. And so what we hope to get out of today is ideation. Hopefully people make new relationships, and hopefully we come up with some solutions and paths forward as we talk about an evolving Detroit. And speaking of evolution, I want to make one thing clear. I suggest that you do not use the word comeback. Detroit hadn't gone anywhere. This is an evolution. Much like your stock portfolio, the value of your home, there's ebbs and flows and ups and downs. But Detroit has remained persistent, tenacious, has never given up. And a lot of the people in this room are responsible for that. So I look forward to today as it relates to the discussions we have about the next 10 years of Detroit. I'm very excited about the people that will be speaking on stage. For me, a few other words summarize kind of this next decade: evolution, inclusion, and passion. As it relates to evolution, again, if you look at the chamber board for a start, and then I'll talk about the programming. The chamber used to be not to offend anyone here, but it used to be a bunch of older white corporate cats. There were no women. There were very little minorities. That has changed over time, and if you look at our board now, it's very diverse, not only ethnically, gender-wise, and from different industries. The same thing happened with our program committee. And so as a result, you see that our programming today is very diverse, not just from who's on stage, but topics. I mean, who would have thought that a chamber, would have a chair on stage with Air Jordans on and a hoodie? Who would have thought that this chamber was going to have a panel talking about the cannabis industry? Who would have thought our chamber would have a returning citizen speaking about his experience and the importance of working returning citizens into the workplace? So the chamber has evolved with the times. Our programming today has evolved as a result of that. Talking about inclusion for a second, let me just say the following. Detroit is 85% or so African American. So it is direly important that black folks in this city feel a part of this evolution. However, inclusion today does not just mean black and white, and it's not just about Detroit. This is the Detroit Policy Conference, all things about Detroit. Our Mackinac Policy Conference in May is about the region and the state. However, Detroit cannot thrive without the assistance of our neighbors, and our neighbors certainly cannot thrive without a robust, healthy Detroit. So we're in this together. So when we talk about regional inclusion, I mean, this means that black folks can feel comfortable going to visit in Grosse Pointe. Jewish people from Bloomfield Hills can go to Dearborn to go out to eat and feel welcome. Muslims from one side of town can feel comfortable going anywhere on the other side of town. We have to be open, we have to be inclusive for this region and our city to move forward. Passion. I'm finding that people are falling back in love with Detroit. I've never fallen out of love with Detroit. Some of you are fair weather, but I'm glad you're back. People are falling back in love with Detroit, and they're passionate about the city. Hill Harper, who you'll hear from today, is passionate about Detroit. This cat's not even from here. Bought a home here. He's invested in businesses here. He's spending time with his young son here. He's passionate about the city of Detroit. Dean Brody's got a day job at Accenture, but Dean Brody wants to bring 1,000 jobs to Detroit. He's passionate about building the workforce. Mario Bueno, who you'll hear from later, a returning citizen, is extraordinarily passionate about bringing returning citizens into the workforce and provides all the rationale why that's very important. And we'll also hear from Adrian Tonone, who is the Executive Director, Vice President, and Ambassador of Nightlife for the city of Detroit. Who would have thought we would have had such a position? But Adrian travels Detroit after dark in the world, passionately evangelizing about how a vibrant nightlife contributes to a thriving economic ecosystem. We're evolving, we're passionate. I want each of you to fall in love with Detroit again. I want each of you to discover your passion, pick a lane, own it, and do your part. Now, last year, you will recall, we were very fortunate. 1 month into her office, we had Governor Whitmer join us here live on stage. As it were, today, as you know, is the State of the State address, and she's not able to be here, but she's going to otherwise welcome us. I would say, in terms of my opinion on her first year in office, I would describe it as being collaborative. There's been firm leadership, tough decisions have been made, but most important and relevant to today is that our governor is a friend and supporter of the city of Detroit. And so we look forward to having words from her and then hearing from the Lieutenant Governor. Now, the last thing I will say before I exit the stage is that when we opened Central Kitchen and Bar 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, we did not set out to say our staff is going to be diverse. Our customer base, we want to be diverse. We opened our doors and we organically and are organically diverse day in and day out. Years ago, Tommy Walker created Detroit versus everybody. Everyone's seen the sweatshirts, very popular, went global with it. Detroit versus everybody came out of a time when everybody was down on Detroit. And so the idea behind Detroit versus everybody was that no matter what you say about Detroit, no matter who's against Detroit, if everybody's against Detroit, Detroit's going to stick together and fight. And we've done that. A year or so ago when we celebrated an anniversary at Central, I was talking to Tommy, and I said, you want to know what? Detroit is everybody now. Detroit versus everybody is still relevant in a lot of ways, but Detroit is everybody, and Central is certainly everybody. So with Tommy's permission, we did these sweatshirts for our staff because Central is everybody, Detroit is everybody,